Before we get too comfortable talking about our lives at home, it's important to consider those among us with no home at all, which is what Califasane has been doing.
Excuse me, could you tell me, could you tell me the time?
Pedro has grown used to life on the streets.
And they just pass you by and they just go like that.
But he might never get used to being overlooked.
And people out there have no idea that it is okay to say no.
The story of homelessness is really lots of different stories.
I don't have family. My mother's dead, father's dead.
I got sick, wound up losing my work and everything.
You just worry about staying alive, you know?
Hi there. Happy Tuesday.
The need for help is obvious.
I can't stand out here no more.
It's very tough.
My life is a nightmare.
And yet the problem seems stubbornly hard to solve.
We're all confronted with the extraordinary challenges. So what is the incident that she's referencing?
Mike Kaufman, the mayor of Aurora, Colorado, wanted to try something different.
This was really a way in which I felt that I could understand it better.
He says he wanted to immerse himself in homelessness for a week.
What kind of ground rules did you set for yourself?
Don't bring any money or access to money. Don't bring any food. So I had a backpack, had a sleeping bag, extra pair of socks, and the clothes I had, and that was it.
How about a cell phone?
I did have a cell phone.
He says it served as a kind of panic button.
The day after Christmas, Mike Kaufman promised to stay in touch with me,
as well as a way to reach out to the local CBS station.
I'm going to just periodically text you.
and went undercover to live among the homeless.
Why not do what most mayors would do? Maybe commission some reports, have some meetings.
It seems like a lot of the things we're trying are not really working. This was an opportunity for me to sit down side by side with people experiencing homelessness and talk to them not as a policymaker, but really as one of them.
And after eating and sleeping alongside some of his homeless constituents,
this is not about a lack of shelter.
It absolutely is not. It is a lifestyle choice, and it is a very dangerous lifestyle. We're not going to solve the problems for people with addictive disorders. We're not going to solve the people that have mental health challenges, but we will help those that have economic challenges in terms of being able to afford stable housing.
I just think that we have to move away from the deserving, undeserving paradigm and really work towards what does the evidence show actually works.
Mary Cunningham has been studying homelessness for more than 20 years.
Homelessness has been with us for a long time. It increased significantly in the 1970s, and we responded by building shelters.
On any given night, more than 500,000 people live in shelters and on the streets. But Cunningham says the shelter system only manages the problem.
Shelters weren't really getting people back to where they needed to be, and that's in housing. And so in the 1990s, early 2000s, there was a response to homelessness that was more focused on housing.
The approach, called Housing First, reverses the traditional model.
We would say, hey, let's help you get a job. We can help get you some substance use counseling, but you need to do all of those things first. So we really used housing as a reward, and it didn't work, quite frankly.
Why not?
Because it's so hard to do those things, get a job, work on your mental health problems when you're literally sleeping in a tent. So instead of giving housing second, third, or fourth, they gave housing first. And that showed to be really successful.
Cunningham measures that success by seeing how many Housing First residents remain in their new homes over time. Her answer? 80%. That was the finding in Cunningham's study of a program in Denver, which is next door to Aurora, where Mayor Mike Kaufman did his own on-the-ground research.
Why is it that you think that the so-called Housing First model can't work more broadly?
I understand the notion that housing is so basic to the human condition that if you address that, not in a temporary way, but in a permanent way, that the other things will fall in place. I just don't think that that's realistic. We're not Washington, D.C. We have to have balanced budgets.
Cunningham says the problem is perception.
If I'm a politician, I would think that one of my first reactions is, this sounds expensive.
Housing provides really significant returns on investment. So for example, let's take people who are experiencing chronic homelessness. They're moving in and out of shelter. They're moving in and out of emergency rooms. They're having interactions with police. All of those emergency services really cost a lot of money.
With Housing First, one study found emergency room visits dropped by 53%. Arrests and incarcerations dropped by about 58%. And the use of emergency shelters essentially ended. Also, participants' mental health symptoms decreased by 35%, and the number of residents using any drugs fell 37%. Perhaps the most important finding: since the Veterans Administration embraced the Housing First program a decade ago, veteran homelessness has been cut in half.
The moment I enlisted, that started my path on homelessness.
James Santiago served in the military for 6 years.
I got out of the Marine Corps in '89, wasn't diagnosed with PTSD until 2010.
That's a long time.
Didn't know why I was drinking as much as I was.
After living in shelters for 3 years, Santiago was placed in a Housing First program. He's been living in a fully stocked studio apartment like this one since 2012.
And so you have the bed, table with a couple chairs, an air conditioner.
A place to put your stuff, your very own bathroom.
In New York City, where homelessness rates are among the highest in the country, Jericho Project is one of the organizations that provides housing and services, like substance abuse and career counseling, for veteran and other homeless populations.
The people who live in this facility, do they pay rent?
They do. They pay rent. They pay 1/3 of their income.
Adriana Rodriguez Baptiste oversees programs at Jericho Project.
And if they have no income?
We help them find income.
The Urban Institute's Mary Cunningham says it's going to take more advocacy to make Housing First widely available.
Is part of the work convincing everyday people, everyday taxpayers, that it's actually a good idea, while they're paying their rent every month or paying their mortgage every month, to give free housing to some other people, some of whom might have problems?
Yeah. Part of it is there are myths that people choose to be homeless. And I don't think the evidence bears that out. When you offer someone a key to an apartment, they take that choice. The problem is people just don't have good choices.
They know what the solution is. They'd rather them die in the street.
You see, that makes me cry.
Most people think of homelessness as something that happens to someone else.
I always thought they were a victim of their own poor choices.
People who experience it firsthand
I'm doing the right things to get somewhere, and I ain't going no damn where.
Still can't quite believe it.
I'm really trying my best to be something.
All I need is a little room or a kitchenette.
For some of them, a place to live doesn't seem like the solution to all their problems, but it does seem like a start.
My biggest hope is that the day will come that when I first wake up in my apartment, I'm not worried that I'm still on the street. When I wake up and I'm not at home.